I thought about it, I was like, wow, this is brand new. No one's ever done it. No, so that seems kind of bad because Nancy's a anti-racist trained. So yes, of course someone's done it. But when I went and Googled anti-racist seminars and stuff, there were none that took place in the general area. It was just a big, gigantic hole of nothing.
Well, my greatest expectation, I'm basically at nature or at heart an educator. And so my goal is always to try to bring some level of knowledge to people, children, adults, citizens, whoever. And I saw that in this particular area of North Carolina, there were some limitations. People did not really understand the analysis of racism, as well as an analysis of some economic issues and how they're tied together. They're always tied. And so I thought it would be important to bring that analysis to people.
Well, I think it definitely kind of sparked a lot of conversation. And I think a lot of new dialogue really started happening after the forum. And so I think that using the forum as kind of a marching off point, or so to speak, really happened.
Well, I was invited to be a part of what I think is a very important conference in North Carolina dealing with race and economics. And as people have said the whole day, it's come at a perfect time in our nation's history to be having this kind of discussion.
Well, I just really think that it's important to have this conversation about anti-racism and the issues that exist, particularly in the Southeast North Carolina, because there are many institutions and organizations that continue to allow racism to exist. As I was discussing about the media, radio stations on a daily basis allow racist DJs to use our public airwaves to degrade other people. So I think it's very important to have this conversation in North Carolina, where there's a lot of racism that still exists.
I hope to create more solidarity among people and to raise consciousness, particularly for white people who sometimes are not included in the mix in ways that are meaningful to them. So I hope to maybe spark this idea in some people that it is possible for white people to empower themselves as anti-racists.
I think it maybe allowed people to meet each other that are doing work around race and justice and economics that haven't met each other before. I hadn't met almost everybody in the room. So it's a beginning towards some coalition building.
I think it brought a certain level of understanding, and that's what we wanted to do. I mean, I don't expect it will stop there. I don't expect that those issues will be resolved in my lifetime or even in my children's or grandchildren's lifetime. I don't expect that to happen. But the more and more you bring the information to people and the understanding, the better equipped people are to handle and to understand what they have to do to work against those systems that are in place.
What I think was accomplished is exactly what we wanted to be accomplished. And what we wanted to be accomplished was a dialogue. That it would go out and people would in little cubby holes or around tables, would discuss the issues and maybe, just maybe, go out into other corners and spark them along the path.
It's so hard because I feel like part of the forum, what made it great was that it was mostly people of color. Whereas a lot of times when you're doing anti-racism work, it's more of addressed to other people on how to be allies and things like that. And I think there's definitely such a need for that, but there's also a need for just people, local people in the community, people of color, to come together and figure out how we're gonna, like a space to centralize ourselves. So I see those kind of things like two conversations happening together in parallel to each other, but maybe not all the time in the same way. But I definitely see a need for more allies. And even little things like questioning racism in the workplace, or people in power creating opportunities for other people to come through and things like that.
To really examine what's at the root of some of these issues that we're talking about, how race factors in to it, how some of the economic miseries that people face are not just natural occurrences, but they're very deeply rooted in both government decisions and policy, and also have a kind of ideological and philosophical underpinning as well, and that would be white supremacy and white privilege. So to really get people to look at it.
We want to do more of this, of creating a space for discussion and conversation and bringing to bear research that's relevant to all the matters that we get very upset and concerned and dismayed about in our society. There's actually, I know this particularly about criminal justice more than other things, but there's research that to bring to bear on it that we need to figure out a way to move that information back and forth. Yeah, to move knowledge about what's going on into communities up to policymakers, and move the research that's going on in academic circles out to the community and to politicians. But as you know, someone in the audience said, and I sort of relate to, just because the powerful know doesn't mean that anything is going to change. And so, I mean, I think a big part of it is the whole community building piece, and sort of the knowledge is power, that more people know and understand about these structures of oppression and these relationships, that there's more they can do about it.
We didn't want it to become a personal guilt trip for anyone, or for someone to air their personal issues, incidents that have occurred, because it could break down. So we wanted to keep it very analytical, but with great understanding, and allow a little latitude for people to talk about their own personal issues. But we really wanted to focus on institutional racism, those institutions that keep people out, keep some people in, keep other people out.
We're talking about an overall privilege that we enjoy in the society that serves to perpetuate racism and maintain racism. We have to look at that privilege. We have to understand what it is and where it comes from. That's really the point that I am the most passionate about, because I feel that I have a responsibility to other white people to bring this message to them.
My guess is that most of the people in the audience, right, are not new to this kind of thinking and analysis. But even as we say, the choir needs to practice as well when we talk about preaching to the choir. And so this is the time we're getting ready for a big performance, to use this analogy. This is a big performance coming up, and so we really need to get our thinking together and to really start to come up with strategies that work.
We are at the cusp of something brilliant. I really do believe that. I think that the last decade has been a real struggle for minorities and people, low-income people, but I think that we are seeing hope. And we're starting to learn how to channel our power. And I really think that that's the key to this, is empowering our communities by the collective, and then learning how to channel our power.
Right after this this forum, we had lunch, and exactly what we wanted to happen, we saw the fruits of it happening. Cards being exchanged, people meeting each other and talking to each other, people who were sitting at tables who didn't know each other, and they were talking and sharing about their experiences, and that's exactly what we wanted to happen. And to be able to see what you want to happen within 20 minutes happen, it's just magnificent.
As we pointed out, you always have prejudice. I mean, you know, one group of people may feel that they don't like another group of people or individuals. That's one issue. But the issue of institutions is much, much bigger. So it's easy to say, well, we have a black president, therefore racism has come to an end. Well, that's not quite true, because you still have a Senate, for example, which is a powerhouse, where you have one black American, potentially. Right now we don't have any, because President-elect Obama has resigned his seat. So that's a powerhouse. If you look at the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies, you're going to see a very minuscule number of people. If you look at school systems and how they're funded, and how who works in them, who's qualified, certified, you're going to see these great disparities of who gets to go to what colleges. You know, so those are the institutions that have to change. This isn't about personally disliking anyone. It's not about that at all. It's about changing those institutions that are in place, and they're invisible.